All right, AP Human Geography. Welcome to Chapter 13, Key Issue 4. Why do cities face challenges? Cities, they're pretty big. They're going to have challenges. Well, let's talk about changing urban physical geography. How things are growing, how they're dilapidating, as in getting older. The first principle is filtering, where we've got large, older houses that are divided up and rented to multiple families. We've got houses that used to be owned by people that could afford them downtown in the city, and now they're being split up, and two or three, maybe even four families are moving into these areas. And maybe that's not a problem, but what happens is you start to add a lot more vehicles that need to park. That's a lot more people that are having to feed into that area, which has been zoned traditionally for maybe a single family home. So there's a lot more usage that goes into that building in that area as well. So it just adds up to the population. These houses and these neighborhoods are overused and they begin to deteriorate. And what was once financially stable, you don't have that economic backing to keep up the older houses. So many of these houses become abandoned due to the higher rents and codes because as land becomes more valuable and more expensive, the rent also goes up. The house payments also go up, and we're not able to keep up that amount of cost. We're not able to keep up the house. Redlining. What the bank does is because you've got an area that's so run down within the city, they will redline it. And they will draw a circle around an area and they will refuse to loan money to a builder or someone who's wanting to revamp their home because it's just not going to be worth it. They know they're not going to get their money back. So they can't fix up the area because the banks won't give them money. So redlining is an issue. Public housing, that becomes an issue because what we're doing is we're getting a whole lot of people, a high density of population that are living at low income. The problem is we've got lots of crime, we've got low wages, so we're not making lots of money. We can't put money back into our buildings, and we've got a drug problem. So you consider the story of Pruitt-Igoe in St. Louis. This is a really cool documentary, and I watched it. You should check it out. It talks about the story of the Pruitt-Igoe series of buildings that they made for low-income housing. And at the beginning, you had people very proud to move in there, and they took care of the elevators, and they were clean, and people had a community. But it didn't take long for it to become overrun with population and drugs, and they didn't keep it up. They didn't back it financially, and now it's just a slum of drugs and overpopulation, and it's all run down. This is the problem. You've got to continue to fund these things, and it's not necessarily a good thing to have everybody of the same demographic living in the same building. Gentrification. Here's where we start to see some good changes to urban physical geography, where people move back into the inner city neighborhoods to renovate the housing. They buy up these older houses and they start to bring them back to life. The changing urban social geography. Well, we've got this problem of the underclass, where we have inner city residents that are trapped in an unending cycle of economic and social problems. You've got unemployment, alcoholism, drugs, illiteracy, juvenile delinquency, and crime. This underclass, it all kind of feeds on each other. Um, it's a social, emotional, psychological inability to get out of where you are right now. So it's difficult because people get stuck. You have kids that attend deteriorated schools. So how can you ever imagine that you're going to get out of that? It's difficult to find affordable housing because everything is so expensive downtown. There's a lack of police, hospitals, and fire protection. There's a lack of shops and jobs. If you're trying to better yourself, you can't because you can't go find a job. You can't go get clothing that's accessible to you and you don't have a car. There's high birth rates because we don't have people educated about birth control. There's a cycle of welfare. If you are existing because you're taking that government check, how are you going to get out of that? Because when you get a job, you lose that government check. And if you have kids, how can you work a job and take care of your kids when you can't afford childcare? And then there's the problem of gangs raising money through drugs. Suburban stress. As rich people move back to the inner city through gentrification, the underclass situation moves out to the inner suburbs. So you have people that are traditionally living downtown. They are forced out by people coming back in through gentrification. They're pushed to the inner suburbs. They're moved to a new location, and we start to see stress then in the suburbs. Consider Chicago, Illinois. We've got Hispanics that move out to the suburbs while whites move back into the north side through gentrification. And we can see that process here, where we've got the whites that are moving back into the north side of Chicago in this bluer greenish area here. And it's pushing Hispanics out to the suburbs. Because through gentrification, it's good. We're renewing the inner city, but at the same time, we're taking away that lower income housing. And you see all of the Hispanic population moving to the suburbs. In Cincinnati, we've got high stress because school districts are in the suburbs, and now they have low income populations that are moving in. So we've got moderate spending here in the inner city through gentrification, people moving back in, but where's the school districts that are the most stressed? Well, it's in the outer suburbs here, where we've got the high population of low income students. So we've got this interesting process where it doesn't matter where we go. We used to have people in the inner city that were stressed and they have low income, but now they're being pushed out through gentrification. Urban economic geography challenges. Well, we've got an eroding tax base, meaning it's going away. We're not having enough income because in the inner city, we've got low income people, a group of people that cannot afford to pay very much as far as taxes. So how are we going to get money back? These inner city residents require public services, but they pay very little taxes. They need people to take care of them, but they cannot afford to help pay for themselves. So one thing we're having to do because we don't have a good tax base is we're having to reduce services. We cannot afford to take care of all those people living in the inner city. The other thing we're having to do is we're having to raise taxes because the people that are living there don't pay very much as far as taxes. So someone is going to have to pay it. We raise taxes. In 2008, we had a recession throughout our entire country. We had the housing market collapse. And so housing prices are higher than they are worth. So if you're trying to buy some housing in the inner city, it's still not that possible, especially to lower income families. And then we do see reviving consumer services in the central business district because they're coming back due to tourism and specialty retail. We've got parks down there. We've coming up with recreational activities to bring people back downtown. So maybe we don't have inner city residents that can pay high taxes, but we create a situation such as Chicago's Navy Pier where you've got people that do have money that can come back downtown through recreation and tourism, and they spend their money giving us a means to revamp our CBD.